Connor DEWAR and Ilya Solovyov are still Pittsburgh Penguins. Dubas making moves. Depth moves. Depth. It's a roster full of depth. You never have to worry about injuries in a roster full of depth. This is the Let's Go Pens Fan React off-season signings edition or something. The season's over, so it's time to start doing admin work. So the Pittsburgh Penguins announced today that Connor DEWAR has signed a 2-year contract extension that runs through 27-28, a 2-year, $4.5 million total contract, which is a 2-year, $2.5 million deal. In addition, defenseman Ilya Solovyov has signed a 1-year deal, which has a value of $850,000 to it. Good cheap deal, good cheap defensive signing depth deal. So what does this mean? First off, that's 1 and 2 of off-season re-signings we can take off the board. I'm sure there's not more important ones that are just hanging out there. None at all. But the 2 that are signed are interesting. Let's talk about it for a brief moment. Connor DEWAR is a player I really liked last year. Really good depth signing, left winger and center. You can play either one. And he had a career high in points last year with 30 points, but also had a career high in goals at 14 and a career high in assists at 16. His plus-minus of plus 16 was the best among forwards and third on the team overall. He was a pretty good minutes muncher. He led the team in shorthanded time on ice and per game basis. He also helped the Pens to the league's best penalty kill. He was a really big part of that, and also one of 6 Pens players to score a shorthanded goal for Pittsburgh, and DEWAR led the team in hits. If he was a defenseman, he'd be a minutes muncher. And this type of signing, DEWAR's a good guy, bottom, maybe middle 6 forward in a pinch, but I think he's a great bottom 6 signing. And again, great penalty kill guy. Hard to believe he's only 5'10", $187. Woof. Doesn't look like it out there. But I think he's a really good signing as a guy who can and play multiple positions. You need a center there. Guys out on the wing, go. PK, he's out there for it. Power play, not so much. Basically, if Connor DEWAR is on the power play, you got problems. But I really like the signing. That this was also a guy that for the Pens had some really good late game goals that were able to ice games. And to have a depth player who can do that is invaluable. Like with my team Hershey, shut up. Both of their championship teams were really built around depth guys who showed up for late goals. Guys like Jimmy Huntington, Alex Lemos, and Matt Strome. In the NHL, it is very much the same thing, where you need those guys like a DEWAR, like a Lizotte, Anthony Mantha, middle 6 guys who can give you big goals and big moments, and that's exactly what DEWAR was. The fact that he's multifaceted as a center and a left winger is great. But my only concern with that is, who's that going to hurt in the pipeline? Because in terms of center/forwards, coming up in the pipeline, you have a couple other guys who can already do that. You have Rutger McGroarty, who can do that. Tristan Braz, who can do that. Mikael Ilin as well. Tanner Howe, a straight-up left winger. So you got a lot of depth down the left side. And probably a decent amount on the center side as well, including Avery Hayes. But I think Avery Hayes, if he's put on the third line with DeWar, DeWar's probably going to stay center and you move Avery to the wings, but those two can be interchangeable. I think, again, this is a really good signing that the Pens have had, and he's a multi-versatile guy. And he's someone who's not going to argue if he's playing the fourth line one night or the second line another night because somehow Malkin hurt himself. So, great signing by the boys. Now, next, Ilya Solovyov, who was a free agent, who was a trade last year, signed for Pittsburgh. The 25-year-old played 30 games last year, split between Colorado and Pittsburgh, where he tallied 3 points in 16 games for the Avalanche and had 5 assists in 14 games with the Pens. He had a goal and 7 assists for 8 points this year, all career highs. The 6'3", 208 defenseman made a Stanley Cup debut skating in 3 games for the Pens this past postseason. Solovyov, I think, played games 4, 5, and 6 for Pittsburgh, and he did pretty decently. This is basically a defensive depth signing. I don't think Solovyov, I don't think it's a two-way deal. So I don't think you're going to see Solovyov go down to Wilkes-Barre. But he could be a press box casualty some nights because here's all of our defensemen heading into next year. Carlson, Letang, Giroux, Graves, Wotherspoon, and let's see, Caleb Jones, if he's still around, Jack St. Ivany, and some kid by the name of Jake Leva Navagage. For all of you counting at home, that's 9. You only have 7 defensive roster spots. That's not including down on the farm, you still have Owen Pickering, Peyton Kettles, Chase Paletta, Daniel Letech, Finn Harding, Brunicki, who's been having beef down in Wilkes-Barre, who he'll probably spend a lot of the season in Wilkes-Barre next year. You still have Alexander Alexiev, who's going to be a restricted free agent anyway. But you get what I'm saying with this. The Pens have a ridiculous amount of defensive depth, and that's not addition into maybe Connor Clifton re-signing. I doubt it. Ryan Shea, bye. And even with this signing, that still gives you like 8 or 9 defensemen at the NHL level you have to deal with. So Solovyov is a great defensive depth signing, but that's what he is. He's depth. Is he younger? Yes, he's 25 years old. Great. We need to get younger on the back end because we have Carlson, who's 35, Letang, who's 39, Graves, who's 30, Clifton is 31, but I don't believe he's coming back. So defensively on the back end, that's where our top guys are older. So Solovyov does add youth to that. But I just wonder if he'll get lost in the shuffle. Because, again, there's a lot of names there. Unless you're going to get rid of some guys during the offseason. I don't just mean Clifton going or Shea going. I mean, can you find a sucker who's going to take Giroux's $5 million deal? After Carlson's season this past year, you're not getting rid of him. Do you flip Wotherspoon at some point? Do you flip Caleb? Lots of questions to be asked with guys that are above my pay grade. I don't mind the Solovyov signing, but as of right now, he's going to get lost in the mix. So that is it. That'll do it for this Let's Go Pens re-signing react video. There'll be a lot more of these as we head into the spring and summer. Let's go Pens. Catch you next time.